There was a night in ancient Rome that no bride spoke about, yet every mother feared it. A night hidden behind music, wine, and sacred vows, where celebration ended and silence began. Historians documented the processions, the veils, the rituals of union. But what happened after the chamber doors closed was buried so deeply that even Roman writers avoided describing it. On this night, a young bride did not enter marriage. She was delivered into it. Carried across thresholds she was forbidden to touch, prepared by women who spoke in warnings, not blessings, and claimed under laws that gave her no right to refuse. Rome called it tradition. Religion sanctified it. Society celebrated it. But beneath the saffron veil lived terror. Tonight, we uncover the ritual Roman brides feared most, a ceremony born from conquest, preserved through silence, and erased from comfortable history. Through rare texts, legal fragments, and reconstructed testimony, we step inside the wedding chamber itself, to witness the moment a woman's identity was stripped, transferred, and sealed behind closed doors. Because this was not the story of one bride. It was the story of an empire, built not only on conquered lands, but on conquered lives. And once you see what happened that night, you will never look at Roman civilization the same way again. The saffron veil of dread beneath the sacred saffron veil, no Roman bride saw clearly, but all of them feared what waited in the dark. On the night meant to celebrate union, Valeria Quintina felt only the slow tightening grip of ownership. As torches were prepared outside, she realized the ceremony was not the end of her girlhood, but the burial of it. The saffron veil resting over Valeria Quintina's face carried the faint scent of crushed flowers and her mother's tears. It was meant to symbolize purity, fortune, and sacred transition, yet to her it felt heavy, like fabric soaked in generations of dread. She stood motionless in the atrium of her father's house, surrounded by marble columns and ancestral statues, whose stone eyes had watched countless daughters stand exactly where she now stood. The household bustled with celebration, servants carrying wine, musicians tuning instruments, relatives laughing loudly enough to drown discomfort. But beneath the festival noise lived another atmosphere, one unspoken, inherited, and understood only by women. Valeria was 19 years old, dressed in the tunica recta she had woven herself, the ritual garment every Roman bride prepared as part of her upbringing. 6 braids bound her hair in the ancient bridal style, each plait tight enough to sting her scalp. Around her waist lay the knot of Hercules, pulled firm, a symbol that only her husband would have the right to untie. It was praised as sacred tradition. Tonight, it felt more like a seal of transfer. Until sunrise that morning, she had belonged to her father, legally, socially, bodily. His authority had governed her movements, her speech, her future. Now that authority was dissolving with the setting sun, passing into the hands of a man she had met only once. Gaius Servilius Capio, 41 years old, widowed, politically established, had looked at her during their meeting, not with affection, but with assessment. Like a man reviewing land he intended to acquire. Her mother adjusted the veil again, though it needed no adjustment. Roman mothers did this often on wedding days, fussing with fabric to avoid speaking truths. "It will be over by morning," she whispered, her voice carefully steady. "You must be still. You must endure. Endure, not celebrate. Not cherish. Endure." The word lodged inside Valeria's chest like a stone. She wanted to ask what precisely must be endured, but the answer lived already in half-heard whispers, in conversations that ended when she entered rooms, in the way older women fell silent whenever wedding nights were mentioned. She knew enough to understand that joy was not guaranteed, survival was. As sunset crept closer, the household's energy shifted. Torches were prepared for the procession. Musicians rehearsed the crude wedding songs Romans insisted were humorous. Male relatives drank heavily, congratulating her father on the alliance. No one congratulated Valeria herself. She withdrew briefly to a side chamber, seeking air that did not feel shared by 100 expectations. From a narrow window, she watched the sky burn slowly from gold to amber. Each shade felt like a countdown. Somewhere beyond the courtyard walls stood the house she would soon enter, not as guest, but as possession. Footsteps echoed behind her. For a moment she thought it might be her mother again, but when she turned, she saw only her reflection in a polished bronze mirror, veiled, braided, bound. She studied the girl staring back and felt the first fracture of identity. By morning, that girl would legally cease to exist. Her name, her loyalties, even her household gods would change. Roman marriage did not merge lives. It transferred them. From the atrium came rising laughter, men joking about the night ahead, women smiling tightly at remarks they themselves had once endured. The sound crawled under Valeria's skin. She realized then that the celebration was not for her happiness, but for the completion of a social transaction centuries old. A daughter leaving, a wife delivered, a lineage secured. The door opened. A servant announced softly that the procession hour approached. Valeria inhaled slowly beneath the saffron veil. The fabric warmed with her breath, trapping it, returning it to her face like the air inside a tomb. She stepped back into the torchlit atrium where guests gathered to witness her departure. Outside, the first flames were being lit, and with them began the night Roman brides feared most. Whispers from women who survived. Before the torches were lit, Valeria sought the only truth Rome allowed to exist, truth spoken in locked rooms. What mothers would not say, widows revealed in hushed voices sharpened by memory, because every Roman bride entered marriage blind, unless another woman chose to break the silence. An hour before the wedding procession, while laughter and music thickened the air of the atrium, Valeria slipped quietly into a narrow storage chamber at the rear of her father's house. It was a place rarely used except for oil jars and ceremonial fabrics, but tonight it served another purpose: privacy. Roman homes were built around visibility, yet women had always found hidden corners when truths needed speaking. She did not have to send for her aunt. Cornelia arrived on her own, closing the wooden door behind her with deliberate care, as though sealing them away from the rest of Rome itself. Cornelia had been married at 19, widowed at 26, and had refused every remarriage proposal since. Officially, she claimed devotion to religion and her children. Unofficially, the household understood that her refusal came from experience rather than piety. She studied Valeria's veiled face for a long moment, reading the fear beneath the saffron cloth with unsettling accuracy. "You want to know what happens tonight," she said quietly. It was not a question. Valeria nodded, her hands tightening in the folds of her tunic. "No one will tell me. They speak around it. Never about it." Cornelia exhaled slowly, the breath of a woman reopening memories she had spent years burying. What happens depends on the man. Some husbands understand their brides are frightened. They move slowly. They try to make the transition less brutal. Others, she paused, choosing honesty over comfort. Others see the wedding night as a right purchased, a right they intend to exercise fully. Valeria felt her throat tighten. Which kind is Gaius? "I do not know," Cornelia admitted. "His first wife died, bearing him no heir. That tells us little about his temperament, only his expectation." She moved closer, lowering her voice further, though no one could hear them. What followed was not spoken dramatically. It was spoken clinically, like instruction before battle. She explained the physical reality of the wedding night, what a husband would demand, what a wife was legally required to provide, what pain most brides experienced regardless of preparation. She explained Roman law with chilling clarity. A wife's body belonged to her husband. Refusal was not disobedience. It was impossibility. Consequences ranged from beating to repudiation, outcomes rarely spoken but widely understood. Valeria listened without interruption, absorbing each word like someone memorizing survival instructions before entering hostile terrain. Cornelia then spoke of strategy, knowledge passed quietly between Roman women across generations. "Do not resist openly," she said. "Resistance invites cruelty. Stillness sometimes invites restraint. Let him believe you accept what you cannot prevent." The words struck with moral weight. "You mean submission. I mean survival." Silence filled the chamber briefly, broken only by the distant echo of wedding songs drifting through corridors. "The wedding night is not the end," Cornelia continued. "It is the beginning. Whatever happens tonight will happen again, and again. A marriage is not judged by one night, but by how you learn to live inside what follows." Valeria felt the ground of her understanding shift. She had feared a single ordeal. Now she saw an ongoing condition. How do women endure it? She asked. Cornelia's gaze hardened with lived knowledge. By becoming valuable beyond the bed. Give him sons, you secure protection. Manage his household well, you gain leverage. Be useful, competent, agreeable. A husband is less likely to damage what benefits him. That sounds like servitude. That is exactly what Roman marriage is. The bluntness of it shattered any remaining illusion. Marriage was not partnership. It was reassignment of service. From father to husband, from girlhood authority to marital authority. Cornelia took her hands then, her grip firm, grounding. "I do not tell you this to frighten you. I tell you because ignorance destroys brides faster than cruelty does. Knowledge is the only weapon Rome allows you." Valeria swallowed hard. Prepared for what? For pain. For fear. For the moment you realize your body is no longer your own. Cornelia's voice softened slightly. And prepared to survive it. To wake tomorrow and begin learning how to live afterward. Outside, a horn sounded, the signal that torchbearers were assembling. Cornelia released her hands. "Go back to the feast. Smile. Let no one see fear. The performance begins now, and it does not end until death separates you." Valeria stepped back into the corridor, the noise of celebration swallowing her again. But now the music sounded distant, distorted, like sound heard underwater. Because she no longer walked toward marriage in ignorance. She walked toward it informed. And somehow, that made the coming night feel even darker. A procession of no return. When the torches were lit, Rome did not escort a bride, it delivered her. The songs were loud, the laughter crude, but beneath the celebration lived an older, darker memory. Because every Roman wedding procession reenacted a history of taking, not choosing.